Hello, my name is Sabrina. Thanks for listening to Multidimensional Imagination. This audiobook is called Multidimensional Imagination, the Language for Interconnection. What exactly is multidimensional imagination? Multidimensional imagination is the language that we need to learn to understand in order to access the multidimensions. What is multidimensional? What exactly does that word mean? According to the dictionary, the word multidimensional means, exactly quoting here, having or involving several dimensions or aspects. Having or involving several dimensions or aspects. So if we want to tap into our multidimensional self, into the multidimensional realm, we are going to be accessing several aspects or several dimensions simultaneousmost of us are not familiar with this location, with this geographic location, because most of us are students of linear location. Most of us are linear students, linear learners, linear beings who communicate and process in a single line, a linear line, one line. A linear line, a single line, is one-dimensional. You're only processing one thing at that time. Learning in the English language is one-dimensional. Learning in any language is one-dimensional. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a process. If this happens, then you can do this happens, and this happens. It's a step-by-step linear process that moves in a linear method. If you're going to tap into your multidimensional self, you're going to be a parallelogram. A parallelogram goes in two directions simultaneously. For an example, I made some things for you to see. Here is a parallelogram. A parallelogram is going to go two-dimensionally. It's going to go up and down and left to right. So it's going to access two dimensions at the same time. That's just the beginning of what we can do in the multidimensional realm. We're going to access two or more dimensions, locations, aspects simultaneously. So how do we get to this realm? How do we get to this reality where we have this ability to learn to become multidimensional? It is our birthright. We are all naturally capable of being multidimensional. It is our normal way of existing once we remember how to tap back into it. And I like to compare the multidimensional imagination to simply a language. The language that we know, we've been probably birthed with. We are in a community of people that probably speak the same language. So it's a universal agreement in your collective group of people that when you say apple, everybody sees the exact same image at the same time. When you say book, people will see a similar type of image at the same time. So you can use this word apple, and it's sounds and symbols that comes out of your mouth, syllables, not symbols, that come out of your mouth that form a word that has a definition that is universally agreed upon by all the people that speak English. Apple. We can visualize it in our mind's eye. We can see it. We know what we're talking about. So if we want to have a conversation with someone that says, please give me an apple, they will understand what we are saying because we are in agreement what these words mean, what these definitions mean, and we can connect with other people and develop, have progress, have an expansive, developing conversation because we understand the language that each other is speaking. Most of us are not consciously thinking of the words that we want to say. Most of us are on autopilot. Most of us unconsciously maybe have an instant download of thought like I want an apple, or an apple sounds good, or I'm in the mood for an apple, and we're not even aware of how do we say it. Do we put a noun first? Do we put the verb next? How do we formulate the sentence? Most of us are on instant autopilot, can instantly express, I want an apple, please pass me an apple. Boom, it happens that fast because we know this language. It's in our bodies, it's in our frequencies, it's in our memory, it's in our consciousness. So we can be on autopilot, we can be on unconsciously communicating without thinking and processing. Now, if we want to go to a different country and talk in a different language where we don't know the definitions of words, we don't even know how to pronounce the words, let alone what the definitions of the words are, let alone how to put a sentence together with the right verbs, masculine, feminine, pronouns, nouns, we don't even know how to do it. So if we are going to try to say, please pass me an apple, we're going to slow down. We're going to start to go really slow in our mind, trying to figure out how do we say apple. We might know the word apple, and we might know I, and that's all we know. So we're thinking like, how do I request an apple? How do I get this thought that I have, this want that I have? How do I express that to the other person? And it's a very slow process because we're now consciously trying to learn the language, learn the words, learn the sounds to ask for what we want in this other culture that speaks a different language. So if you can always use that illustration, use that metaphor as a tool to help us realize when we are going to play in the multidimensional realms, when we are going to explore our multidimensional selves, we're going to need to learn a new language to help us access this information, to help us communicate in this world, to help us understand when other people are communicating with us. We need to learn this language. And this language is a universal language. And it's a universal language expressed through the imagination. And now that might sound too simple or too inaccurate, because in our reality, in the linear reality, in our English world that I live in, we don't have to use our imagination to communicate. We can simply say, I want an apple. We don't need the imagination to come up with a story, to get bits and pieces. We are on autopilot because we know this language. But in the other realms, in the multidimensional realm, the way to access that dimension is through the imagination. And it's a different style, a different way to communicate than what we need to do in the English language, what we even need to do in the Spanish language or French language or the Portuguese language or whatever language we want to speak in, because we are bypassing the linear line and we are going in multiple lines at the same time. So we're not going to learn a linear language. The language is going to be different. It's going to be the imagination is the language on how we access the multidimensional realms for communication.